All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kayla, and I'm the third Audubon. Thank you for joining us tonight for this spectacular show of birds. On a normal year, we would be celebrating together in person at the Roost for our annual Purple Martin parties. But as literally everyone knows, it is not a normal year. And it's probably best that we don't gather by the hundreds in close proximity, even for something as neat as seeing these amazing aerialists. So instead, we will enjoy these birds tonight from the comfort of our own homes and central AC as we listen and learn from Jennifer Bristol, our fantastic guest this evening, and how Purple Martins are responsible for one of the coolest performances you can ever see in a parking lot. Purple Martin roosting in Austin and about Purple Martins and their behavior in general. But first, I want to thank everyone here who has supported Travis Audubon throughout the pandemic. Your donations, attendance of our virtual programming, and kind words mean so much. If you are brand new to Travis Audubon, then welcome. We were founded in 1952 by visionary Central Texans who recognized the vital connection between conserving wildlife habitat and the ecological balance. We are an independent chapter of the National Audubon Society. We have over 1,200 members, and if you are not a member yet, we encourage you to join us. In addition to providing financial support for our organization, members receive discounts on classes and exclusive access to our 750-acre Baker Sanctuary in Leander, which is a great place to see the very special golden cheeked warbler. Some of our members have found Baker to be a great place to enjoy nature and socially distance during this pandemic, and you can too. Learn more about who we are and become a member today at www.travisaudubon.org. Although we will be virtually enjoying the Purple Martin Roost tonight, you are able to see the roost in person. The Martins will be roosting through August and start showing up around 7:30 each evening. If you do plan on attending, you can find information on our website on where exactly they are located. And if you do go, please follow local guidelines for social distancing. Maintain your distance from other groups and wear a mask. And maybe take an umbrella too. If you've ever been to a Purple Martin party, you know that there's the constant risk of getting pooped on. Some say it's good luck, but I say it's gross and I want nothing to do with it. I usually seek refuge under a canopy or large brimmed hat. But really, it's a spectacular sight to see the roost in person and something that you have to see at least once in your life. Now, let me introduce our guest tonight, Jennifer Bristol, who has been a friend and great supporter of Travis Audubon for years. She is the author of Parking Lot Birding, a fun guide to discovering birds in Texas, which I will link to in the comments soon. She's the former director of the Texas Children in Nature Network at the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, where she developed a grassroots movement around the need to better connect children and families with nature for a healthier and happier future. For her efforts to connect youth with nature, she has received the Westcave Outdoor Discovery Center Enduring Dedication Award and the Phil Hardberger Park Conservancy Nature Hero Award. In 2018 and 2019, she received the Greater Texas Birding Classic Most Valuable Birder Award. She has been a park ranger, business owner, marketing executive, and scenic painter in the Texas film industry. Having a deep sense of service, she serves on the Downtown Commission for the City of Austin and has served on over 10 different boards and advisory teams with a focus on conservation and youth engagement. She resides in Austin with her husband and charismatic dogs. Jennifer, we are so happy to have you with us this evening.
Thank you, and thank you for that very nice introduction. I certainly appreciate it. And I'm really excited to be here out in the parking lot. I think this is one of the ultimate parking lot birding events that happens in Texas throughout the year. And so Kayla's going to work with me to make sure that everything sounds good and looks good. But if you have questions, you can put those in the chat box And at the end of the presentation, and after we see these amazing birds together, I'll be happy to answer a few questions. And you're going to hear some car noise because, well, I'm in a parking lot. And this is where the birds have chosen. And so, rather loud car there. So this is where we come to enjoy them. So I'll talk a little bit about parking lot birding first, as we kind of wait for the birds to start gathering, and they are starting to show up. There's a lot of European starlings here right now. So why did I want to write a book about birding in parking lots? Well, it's so much more than just birding in parking lots. But the running joke was that we, my mom and my husband and I, and you know, we'd go birding, and we would hike all these long distances, and we'd be way off in the middle of nowhere, and we would start getting back to the parking lot or the nature center campus or the bird blind, and we'd start seeing the birds. And it's not that there was more birds in those areas. It's just sometimes easier to see them in those areas, in those contrived spaces where there's an opening to look into sometimes that dense vegetation, you know, like if we're in East Texas or down in the Tomalina thorn scrub down in South Texas. And so these open spaces allow us to see and really observe the birds and hear them and watch them and certainly photograph them. And so that became a running joke. And then eventually, I don't remember if it was my mom or my husband said, "Hey, Jen, you should write a book about that." And so on that trip, we were on the birding, Greater Texas Birding Classic, which is a Texas Parks and Wildlife event, which is a competition to see how many birds you can see, either in a day, or we always did the week long. And so I wrote an outline that day, and that outline is pretty much what I stuck to when I wrote the book. And so it was cool to, you know, conceive it, if you will, while on the road, while birding, and with two of my favorite people to bounce the ideas off of as we were out birding. So as we're waiting for the purple martins to arrive, I'll talk a little bit about some of the other birds that are here, because I don't feel like we can be in a parking lot without talking about the parking lot royalty, which is the great-tailed grackle. And there are plenty here in this parking lot. And certainly, if you ever park down at the UT campus, you're familiar with this bird. Like the purple martin, they roost up, but they roost up in the winter. Right now, they're scattered throughout the city as they raise their young and they feed. But in the winter, they will roost up in these big, you know, in the trees down at the University of Texas or along power lines. You'll see them. And so they get my parking lot royalty award. The other bird that you might be able to hear right now, which is the European starling, we'll talk about them in a second, but it's also the white-winged dove. And they are also a pretty urban bird for Central Texas. What I love about those birds is they almost, they were very threatened. Their populations really dwindled in the mid 1900s. And thanks to a lot of concerned citizens, they got together and started setting aside lands in their nesting areas, in their critical habitat. And they have a great comeback story. You know, because people cared and because people did their part, worked with hunting groups, worked with private landowners, those birds have made a really great comeback and are very common, you know, throughout the state now, which is great. All right, we are starting to get some purple martins, so this is good. This is good. And I'll talk about them in just a second. The other bird that is here is the European starling. And they you might guess it from the name, are from Europe. And they were brought here by a group of citizens who thought they wanted to have every bird that William Shakespeare ever mentioned in his sonnets and his works. They wanted them to come to the New World. And so they brought the European starling, the house sparrow, a couple other ones that I don't recall off the top of my head, but they brought them. And the European starling is one of the more invasive ones because they do take over the nesting cavities, in particular of the eastern bluebird, and kind of cause some problems there. But again, through conservation efforts and through identifying the problem, the eastern bluebirds, people put up nesting boxes for them, and they've made a good comeback. So I love a good comeback story, and especially when it has to do with wildlife. All right, so we are getting kind of our first waves here of the purple martins. In just a few minutes, I'll turn the camera around once there's more of them so you can kind of see them more. So what are they doing? Why are they all of a sudden arriving at this parking lot and to these live oak trees that are here? Well, it's a pretty fascinating story. They are a colonial bird. They love to be in colonies. They're very social. They have hierarchies. They have family groups. They have this whole, system of living. And this has been part of what they do for, thousands of years. And they're very comfortable with living around people. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But right after about 4 to 6 weeks after the fledglings come out of the nest, they start to form these big roosts. And there's about 250 of these locations throughout the United States. And I say throughout, but actually east of the Rocky Mountains and south of the Great Lakes is generally their habitat in North America during the summer. And so they'll go out during the day and they feed across central Texas, and then they arrive in these roosts. And by 8:30 tonight, by the time we're wrapping this up, there will literally be thousands and thousands and thousands of birds here. And it will just be a cacophony of sound as well. So, really looking forward to as we get a good amount here. I'm in the middle of this parking lot, and there's a roundabout here, and there's a group of trees in the middle of the roundabout, and that's really the main event. And so then the trees that are sort of around me here, I'll turn around. There's the roundabout trees. And then all around on the perimeter, there's other oak trees. And as the birds start coming in, I think the prime families get the one in the middle, and then they start settling into the outer ones. So we'll watch that dance occur as they start coming in. So they roost up. They'll spend about a month here. They socialize, they're talking to each other, they're establishing those family groups. And then eventually they will make their journey all the way down to Brazil in the Amazon rainforest. They also some are in Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, kind of neighboring countries, but the majority of them go to Brazil. And some fly overland. Others will fly directly across the Gulf of Mexico in a single flight. And then others that leave more of the Florida area will sort of island hop across the Caribbean down into South America to reconnect with their colonies as they arrive back there. They'll stay there until about January. And then the first adult males will start arriving back in Texas. And in Florida, right around January, late January, early February. And then the females arrive along with males that are less than 2 years old. So, and they'll make the journey together as they come up. And they'll reverse their course. They follow pretty much the same course that they do during the winter. They either fly across the Central America, or they'll come up through across the Gulf Coast, or they island hop as they come around. There are a few colonies that are in Arizona, New Mexico, and a couple in California. I feel like I should mention those, because if people are like, wait a minute, I've birded in California before and I've seen purple martins. Yes, they do have several small colonies that are in those states as well. And in Texas, they're pretty much everywhere except for the Trans-Pecos region. So if you're wondering if you're seeing them in Central Texas, yes, they're all over in Central Texas. And when they arrive back in the summer, oh, here comes a big wave of them. They primarily nest in man-made structures. So that's kind of a cool story in and of itself. And I'll see if I can tell it fast enough before these birds really start to come in. That literally thousands of years ago, Native Americans noticed that these birds eat a lot of insects. And so they started hanging up gourds, hollowed out gourds up into trees and on a big stick structure that they would make. And when they'd hang up the gourds, the birds would nest in them. And especially if they had a cluster of the gourds. So they thought, aha, let's put that near our agriculture fields, and they can help eat the bugs. So that was great. Then they would put them in their villages as well and help keep the bugs down there. So this beautiful relationship between humans and the purple martins has been going on for thousands of years. When the Spanish and then the Europeans came over, they also noticed that the Native Americans did this, and they too started putting up houses and having them all around. James Audubon talks about when he was out in his journeys that he would gauge the inn that he wanted to stay in by if they had a cool looking purple martin house out, which I think is a pretty cool story. So as he walked along the row of different inns and stuff in a particular town, if they had a cool purple martin house out, he would choose that one instead of one that maybe didn't have as cool of a place out. So I think that's a pretty cool James Audubon story, who is one of my nature heroes. All right, it's getting pretty loud here. I'm going to move around a little bit and see where everybody's at. And I'm very happy to see we've got quite a few people out on both sides of the parking lot here and moving around. To me, this is a nature experience. It's super easy to get to. It's really fun to watch, and it beats the pants off the bats. And I say that because every time I go down to see the bats, it's really crowded and it seems really hot. So I like this. It's a little more open and can walk around. Although I won't lie to you, it is a little hot. And it's a little hazy today too because of the dust, Saharan dust that's coming in. So we're getting a pretty good group here. Waiting for a few more to show up in the tops of this tree, and then I'll turn the camera around so you can see them. Right now, there's not much to see here, although they are all talking, that's for sure. I'm really glad to see people out. They're social distancing. Everybody's looks like they're wearing their masks and really doing a good job of enjoying this, but doing it safely. So I talked about what the Native Americans did to put the houses out. You can put out a house too, and the Purple Martin Conservation Association has really, really great information on their website about how to pick a house, a Purple Martin house that's best for you. and set them up and keep them clean so that the birds are attracted to them throughout the year. Because it's really cool. I mean, and think about if you want to have them in your yard, that's great. They're also something really great to have like at a school campus, at a church. You know, maybe you want to get together with some neighbors and put one up in your neighborhood. They're really great to have, and they're really, you know, if you want to get your kids interested in birding, that's a great thing to have, is to have a purple martin house out, something that they can focus on and look at and really see the birds. So it is getting pretty loud here. So what happens is they all start coming in their different family groups, and they'll start landing in these trees, and then they'll resettle. They're constantly resettling to make sure that they get into the tree just the right particular way. So I was mentioning the purple martin houses. If you do order them, sometimes I've seen online, like they'll just try to sell you one that just has like one nesting box. Make sure you get them in a cluster because they do nest together. That's something that's very important to these birds. So make sure you get what's called like a cluster box or cluster house. And again, the Purple Martin Conservation Association has really great information. That's hard to say kind of fast on their website, and you can find out more about that. If you put them up, I will say this, make sure you put it up like November, December, so that when those males first arrive in January, they can find it. Or maybe you want to give it to yourself as a Christmas gift, or your family as a Christmas gift, and then you can put it up in late December. All right, I think I'm going to turn this camera around and see if y'all can see these okay. Let's see what we got here. I'll wait till this car goes by. Probably not that interested in seeing the, what is that? Chevy Impala go by there. Okay. So here's the cluster of trees, and I'll hold it here and see if you can see some of the birds coming by. They're just starting to come in. And as they arrive into this parking lot, they're also feeding. And so one of the cool things about purple martins is they feed fairly high up in the sky. Chimney swifts do the same. And so there's a whole group of birds that feed on the lower insects. Barn swallows, even the cliff swallows, they feed lower, and the purple martins feed on the higher insects. And so there's a misconception that purple martins eat mosquitoes. Well, they don't, because mosquitoes are kind of a low-flying insect, and in general, the purple martins are up higher and feeding on those things. And the feeding must be good because they're not settling down into the trees very much. They're still really flying around. And I will say, the other night when I came out, they're doing the same pattern as they did the other night, which is, it looks like the females and the young, the fledglings arrive first. So right now I'm seeing mostly birds that have a white or buff colored underbelly. And those are the females or the young birds. And then the males are this beautiful royal purple color. Some people say it's like a blue, iridescent blue color, but for me, it's like a royal purple. And I haven't seen as many of those show up yet. Once those start showing up, the hierarchy really starts to happen in the trees as they settle down. So, but hopefully, wait for this car to go by. Hopefully you can hear them. I mean, it's really sensational. Because I can hear my mom laughing in the background too, so you might be able to hear her. So I'm in the La Frontera parking lot. I forgot to say that earlier. In between the Hobby Lobby, the Applebee's, which, by the way, according to what's painted on their sign there at Applebee's, they have a $25 margarita kit to go if you're interested, and a $1.99 kids meal. So just, you know, tossing that out there. There's the Hobby Lobby, the Pier 1 import store is also right here, and a Chipotle, which is, and then this roundabout is kind of in the middle of those. Earlier when I got here, there was also a crested car that flew through and had a white-winged dove in his talon when I first got here, and was making off with his dinner. He made a second pass through, and all the birds kind of flew into the tree for safety for a minute as that raptor passed through. The crested car is a really, really cool bird too. If you ever get a chance to see those, they look like a bald eagle, but they are actually a falcon, and but they walk along the ground sometimes like a chicken. So they're needless to say a very, very interesting bird. They used to be called the Mexican eagle. Some people still refer to them as that, and you can see them a lot on you know, paintings and artwork and stuff down in South Texas and through Mexico as well. Okay, I'm starting to see the males show back up. We've got a few of those, so I'm gonna move back over to my little spot here, because the top of this tree is really where the action starts to happen. If it's the same pattern as the other night, which tends to be. And as the males start to come in, and they'll, like I said, they'll kind of sit down, and then the family groups come around them. At least that's what we think happens. And way more intelligent and scholarly people than myself have made these observations again, you know, over you know, a couple hundred years since we've been studying birds and really understanding life patterns. The purple martin is one of the more studied birds in North America. Here's a group of them. And again, that's because they have lived with us. They're very familiar birds. They're fine with living in urban spaces. Again, as long as they have places to have, you know, a house out. And as long as they have good food. I will say this, all birds, but purple martins in particular, are impacted by extreme weather changes. So if there's a drought and insects are low, you know, that's gonna impact them. If there's a big cold front that arrives in Texas after they've gotten here, after they come across from South America, and if it stays cold for more than 3 or 4 days, and that kills a lot of the bugs, that can also kill the purple martins as well. So extreme weather, you know, impacts them, and all birds are impacted by drought. That's a big one. Let me walk over here a little bit and see. So it looks like we got a couple people over here. There's some people on the other side of the parking lot that have the back of their car opened up, and they're having snacks over there. It looks like might walk over there and see. Got quite a little crew back here. Mom, hey mom, will you watch that? I'm gonna walk over here so y'all can see these over here. Get a little different angle. Oh, there's a lot of people over here. Again, if you want to come out to this, it's a great thing to do. Just make sure you social distance, wear a mask. Oh, there goes a car. Maybe that's why they're not landing in that tree today. That's the third time he's passed by that one. Oh yeah, he's over there by the Pier 1 now. Everybody in the Pier 1 parking lot. Trees, they're moving. I have my big camera out, so I don't want to get too far from that. Even though I asked my mom to watch it, I don't exactly see her darting down the hill after it. But we've got some people over here. And they brought all kinds of snacks and their kids out. Hi. All right, now they're starting to come in more and more to this tree. And here comes the males. Oh yeah. So the purple martins, they are not a songbird. They don't have a beautiful song like the painted bunting or summer tanager or even a Carolina chickadee, but they do talk all the time, and they're constantly clicking and verbalizing to each other, again, to keep those family groups together, and they're constantly in communication with each other. And so you can probably start to hear them more now. There's a big cluster of them. If you are out here, don't stand too long with your mouth open looking up, which I just caught myself doing. That could have adverse effects. So be warned. Things happen in nature, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a beautiful sunset too, even though what's making it a beautiful sunset is the Saharan dust. But it does make for a beautiful, beautiful evening. And here's a little fun fact about the Saharan dust. Obviously, it comes from the Sahara, but it comes from a dried lake bed there, and it's full of potassium. And potassium is really great for the plants. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, across the street. All right. Let me get back to the safety of my camera over here. A little busy on the old roundabout. everybody there. I was trying to see if they picked another tree tonight other than the one here in the roundabout. But to be honest, it doesn't look like they're really dedicating to any main tree. They're kind of, and a couple of them here. So we'll see, you know, what they decide. And that's the thing I love about nature is that, you know, you can try to predict everything that's going to happen, but really and truly it's up to the birds. It's up to what's going on that evening, the wind, the insects, and whatever they decide. So I won't lie to you, if you come out, make sure you bring some water and be prepared for it being hot. It's even though it didn't get up to 108 like it did the other day, it's still very warm out here. So dress accordingly and make sure you bring some water in addition to wearing your mask if you plan on talking to other people. So just want to little public service announcement there for being safe and coming out to enjoy these birds. All right, I'm gonna turn this back around as they're starting to land here. And here they come. Really getting more and more of them. It's kind of interesting to listen to the grackles all in the background. I was talking about the purple martins talking to each other all the time, and the grackles are constantly vocalizing too. And that's their way of establishing territory and keeping their families together as well. And of course, they have that distinct call that I think just sounds like Central Texas to me when I think of Austin, and if I think of a bird song or sound that represents the city to me, I think of the grackles. And some people might be like, the grackle, but I think they're a pretty cool bird. They're really gathering up now. Wish I could zoom this in for you. Unfortunately, I'm only as good as my limited technology here. But again, I invite you to come out. They'll be here every night until about mid-August. So if you want to, come on out on the weekend or a week, gather up the family, come on in the evening. It's like I said, this is one of the coolest nature events that I think the city has, and it only lasts for a month while these birds gather up and before they make their big journey down to Brazil. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I talked about extreme weather impacting them because they do winter down in the rainforest. When we have things like the big fires in the rainforest, over logging and stuff in the rainforest, that that impacts these birds as well. And so about this being such a local event, and we're here tonight marveling at these birds, we are globally connected by them, you know, with our friends in South America, and thinking about where do these birds go in the winter, and what habitat is critical to them in both the spaces here in the US as well as down in South America as well. So I like to think about that. I like it that birds, you know, make us think a little more globally, and not just always within what happens within our own border. So that's one thing I love about birding is they don't, you know, our things that are our rituals, our timelines, our holidays and things like that, they don't mean anything to the birds. The birds are doing what they're going to do, and they are extremely efficient. You know, I love talking to kids about birds, because everything that they do, everything a bird does has a purpose and a reason, and they're very efficient with their movement and their time, and what they do. And so, you know, that's a great lesson for all of us to take away with what we are doing. It's really interesting. They're really just not settling down tonight quite yet. I guess there's a lot of insects out, that's a good thing. I'm gonna do a time check with Kayla real quick. See what time it is. I should have worn a watch.
Jennifer, we're at 8:13.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really kind of surprised that they haven't sat down yet. I mean, I'm checking all the trees and they're still just really kind of up. So we'll give them a few more minutes here, and then if we want to take some questions and stuff, or we can just go all the way until 8:32, which your choice, Kayla.
I think we can start taking questions in a couple of minutes, and then once we're done with questions, if things are looking really good, we can just kind of keep the camera on the birds for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking about the birds being very efficient in their and very purposeful. One of the things I like about the purple martins, I mean, they are amazing flyers when you watch them just twist and turn. But they have a really large mouth. They don't have a long beak. They have a very large mouth and beak that's kind of wide, and it kind of makes them look like they're smiling all the time. But it's so that when they go to catch a bug or insect, they can just basically swoop it right in. They're grabbing it on the wing, they're eating it on the wing, and as they feed throughout the day. And they get a lot of the water that they need and moisture that they need from the insects that they eat. We've got a big truck going by here real quick. So again, they're very efficient at what they are designed to do, and as are all swallows. They're in the swallow family. All right, they're really starting to come in now. It's almost dizzying. I have to tell you, like, I'm looking up and looking in so many directions that it gets a little disorienting for a second. Yeah, they are really feeding tonight, way more than they were the other night. This is really cool to watch. You know, you, like I said, I mean, you think you kind of have a grasp of what their pattern's going to be, but then they change it on you, which is cool. All right, let me see. Hold on, if I can get this. See if the light's good enough.
Hey, Jennifer, I'm back.
Yeah.
And we've had some requests from folks to hold the camera right up near the treetops and to just kind of hold it there for a little while, just so they can see how the birds are moving in and out of the tree. So
Okay.
we might do that for a couple of minutes while we're doing some questions.
Yeah, I was trying to, it might be too dark to, I was trying to, on my big camera, show that, but I think it's going to be a little too dim for that. Yeah, let me see if I can point it more. I don't have a great extended pole here, but I'll do my best. And I don't want to get run over. Can you see him better now?
Oh yeah, that looks great. All right, Jennifer, we're going to go ahead with some questions.
Okay.
And the first question that we got was from a viewer who is in Marble Falls. So they had around 95 martins that fledged this year in Marble Falls. Do you think some of those fledglings are in Round Rock? And could there be a roost further west of Marble Falls?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I bet they are, you know, here at this one. When I looked on there's a map on the Purple Martin Conservation Association, and they have a map of where all the roosts are. And like I said, there's about 250 of them throughout the United States. And Texas has, I can't remember if it's like 10 confirmed roosts, and this is one of them. And then there's a couple that are unconfirmed roosts in Waco, and I'm trying to think of where some of the other ones are, East Texas. But yeah, they certainly could be. I mean, they'll start to come from all over Central Texas into these big ones. Oh, the other unconfirmed one is in San Marcos, so there could be one there. There's a confirmed one in San Antonio, Dallas, McAllen, Brownsville, Corpus Christi, Fort Worth, and there's, I think there's 3 or 4 in Houston that are down there. So, I mean, I would say if she's in Marble Falls, absolutely. I mean, these birds can, you know, really travel, you know, pretty far when they leave the nest. Oh, and this is something really cool too, is you can see them on Doppler radar. Like right now, if Doppler radar, you know, was picking up, you would be able to see these birds swirling in. And then certainly when they leave in a big cluster in the morning, Doppler radar picks up that as well. So that's something that's really cool about these birds. Radar doesn't necessarily tell us where they distribute, but that's where banding comes in really important. So that was really cool. They were all coming in the tree and they all left. And what happens is they all of a sudden they'll go silent. Here they go again. For just a second, they go silent as they leave. And now they've got to regroup and resettle back into the tree. And you know, there's nothing obvious that I can think of that made them all go, but that's what they do. Is there another question?
So these roosts, they come in different shapes and sizes. Do you know if this is one of the larger roosts in Texas? Are there ones of comparable size? Because I know this one is supposed to be pretty big, but how does it compare to other roosts, other established roosts in Texas?
Yeah, so the only other established roosts that I've been to is the one down in Houston, because the Houston Audubon also does a similar, Travis Audubon has the Purple Martin parties, and Houston Audubon also has a kind of a party around the Purple Martins, and that's a really big roost that's down there in Houston. But I would say it's about the same size as this one. If I remember correctly, the other really big one is in Brownsville and Corpus. Those are kind of the four bigger ones. And again, on that map that I was looking at, it rates them, which ones are the bigger ones and which ones are smaller. Like there's kind of a small one in Waco, but this one is pretty big, and it's fairly new to here. They moved here, what was it, a couple years ago, and for a very long time they were at the Highland Mall parking lot in Austin. But once that started, a lot of construction started going on there as that mall was transformed into the ACC campus. Then, hi there, mind your way. Good evening. Oh, here we go. Then they moved up here after that, and are no longer in the ACC campus. But that doesn't mean at Highland Mall. That doesn't mean that they might go back 1 year. Again, like I said earlier, it's up to the birds. All right, they're really settling in. We're going to wait for them to kind of go quiet, like I said. Can you see them in the big tree?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay. Was there another question?
Yeah, so you mentioned that there didn't seem to be quite as many birds out tonight as usual. Maybe that's changed now that it's a little later and the activity is picking up. But how does tonight compare to other times you've been out to the Roost and Round Rock in terms of numbers?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because the other night when I was out here, it was Monday, and it had been 108 degrees that day. So I think they were kind of settling down maybe faster. And it seemed like there was more of them earlier. Now, I mean, I don't know if you can see, the sky is just filled with them now. So they're kind of arriving a little bit later. And I'm sure that all depends on, if their feeding is good, how the winds are. Oh, they're really, really filling the top of these trees now. They're just swarming around. I will say that I think when I was they went from the ACC Highland Mall parking lot over to the parking lot where what am I trying to say? Off Cameron Road. I should remember the name of it. I used to live over there. That one, they were by the no, I take it back. It was ACC when they were by the Jack in the Box there. That seemed to be the most I've ever seen that year. And that was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. It was kind of a wet year, so I think the insects were really good. And that was a pretty spectacular event on that day. But today, right now, like all of a sudden they are here. They are hitting this tree. We've got all kinds of birders showing up now too. Woo! Oh yeah, they're showing up. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Here they go. Everybody's got to leave the tree, go see this new huge group that just showed up. And now this is what's really cool. Now they're going to do this like huge swirl around, and they'll just, it's literally, it's like a hurricane of birds right now. I mean, they're just in this giant swirl, and then they're all going to start coming back to the tree. Oh, it's just so cool. I can't even describe how cool it is. I mean, if people wanted to place a bet on me getting pooped on right now, the odds are really good. But I am wearing my Travis Audubon hat, so. Can you see them pretty good now?
Yeah, they look great. I don't want to ask you more questions because I don't want the camera to be off of the birds.
You can ask me a question and I'll just hold it right here.
All right. Another question is, how long is the roost going to be active this summer? And do they leave all at once? Do they leave a little bit at a time? Can you talk a little bit about the behavior of them staying at the roost and how long it actually, how long the roost exists?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'll try to hold this at this angle, and can you hear me okay with it extended out like this?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, so they'll, like I said, they start roosting up at about mid-July, and they'll be here until about mid-August, and there's never a set date when they decide to leave. You know, they do like a little bit of a north wind if they can get it, to help them move down to Central America, but they will go in a group, and they might not 100%, you know, every single bird leave on the same day. Oh, here they go. Everybody's going around the roundabout now. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, they're literally, it's like they just swirl around this roundabout like on a racetrack. Yeah, and but within a couple days, they'll all be gone and start making their journey south. And they have roosts like this kind of all along the network in the system as they go from, you know, one to the next. From what I understand, they're called migratory roosts as they move down to South America. And if the winds are favorable, they can be there within, let's see, if I remember correctly, they arrive in January, and then they're at their most northern point by about early May. So it takes the reverse, going back again, depending on the winds, and depending on food, you know, availability as they go down. And again, that's also something that's really cool too. When they do leave, that's something they can really see on Doppler radar. I mean, they're just filling the sky right now. And they're so beautiful to watch in flight. You know, there's just enough wind so that they just are barely moving their wings until right as they start landing in the trees and coming in. And then there's just this sort of beautiful fluttering that happens at the top of the tree. And here they come. And this is just dizzying to watch them all come in, all into this tree. And they just glide so effortlessly, and then they all pack into this tree, and they all have an order and a purpose, like I said, and they clearly are talking about it. Who gets to sit where and by whom?
I have one animal behavior question for you from a viewer from Mason, Texas. And so
Okay.
they They had 4 females at their farm with late fledges due to a tornado, and
Hmm.
all of the males abandoned the colony, leaving the females to feed their nestlings. Do you know if that is the usual behavior?
So yeah, can you repeat that question?
Sure. So they're in Mason, Texas, and they have 4 females with late fledges due to a tornado. And all the males abandon the colony, leaving the females to feed their nestlings on their own. Do you know if that's a usual behavior?
I don't know if that's a usual behavior or not. Yeah, I unfortunately do not have an answer to that question. I'm sorry that there was a tornado, and hopefully those fledglings um, are big enough to make the journey by the end of, by mid-August. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. That's a really good one.
And there's so much about the birds that we don't know. There's still so much research that can be done on these birds. And if that's something that maybe that's a question that no one knows the answer to. Who knows?
Yeah, 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 exactly. I really hope that people, if you can get out and you can come down to this, and watch this live. It is so beautiful, and them against the sunset, just swirling, coming back into this tree.
And I have just one more question to you, or a question for you before we turn it over just to the birds.
Yep.
So I know that tonight we're talking a lot about the purple martins. We are at the Roost, or you are. I am not. I am at home. But tell us a little more about your new book, Parking Lot Birding, and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, so my book came out on April 22nd, which is Earth Day this year. And that was a little strange because it was in the middle of a pandemic. So it's hard to launch a book when the bookstores were closed. And so that's been interesting. But it's done really well because people are home and they're birding. And that's been, I really, really love that feedback that people are home birding and that they're using the book to identify birds and look at the birds as they're home, and really noticing the nature that's around them, because that's the core purpose of the book is I want people to think about nature that's local, just like this beautiful event that's happening right here, and not think of nature as some faraway place. And so the places that I put, there's 90 locations in the book, and they're easy to get to. And when you arrive there, they're easy to get around. That was something that was really important to me, was that they would be accessible to people who have limited mobility, or who might be birding with children, or like me, have a bad knee. So easy to get around and easy to find the birds. So, I always like the philosophy of, if you're going to take a kid fishing for the first time, you want to take them somewhere they're going to catch a fish, right? And so if I'm going to send somebody out birding for the first time, or even their 100 and bazillionth time, you want to see the birds. And so I tried to find places that had a good variety of birds, a good variety of habitat, and easy to get around. So I had a pretty specific criteria that I was looking for. I went to about 300 different locations, and narrowed it down to 90 that are mentioned in the books. And they can be everything from a wastewater treatment plant like Hornsby Bend, to a national park like Big Bend. But again, even at the national parks, I focused on, maybe the campground or the bird blind that they have there. Again, going somewhere that's going to be easy to find the birds, and and not having to, go off on some really long hike, carrying a bunch of gear, which I've done, and which is fun for a while. um, but after you've done that enough times, it's really pleasant just to walk up, find the birds, have a rich and meaningful nature experience like I'm having right now, watching these birds. And oh, here they go again. And so that was really the purpose of the book, is to help people find nature. So when I worked for Texas Parks and Wildlife and I worked for Texas Children in Nature, and I was involved in a whole bunch of different research studies to look at people's relationship with nature, they so often described it as, to them, nature was a faraway place. It was the mountains, it was the beach, it was the rainforest. And they didn't think of it as something that was accessible and right in their own backyard. And so this book really helps create an easy guide to find places to go birding, have rich and meaningful, experiences outside. And you don't even have to leave the state, which is saying a lot because Texas is big, but you could drive all day and still be in Texas. But again, finding somewhere like this, I mean, this is so cool. And I'm so happy to see so many people out enjoying this. I'm going to focus on this tree over here a little bit, right above me. Can you hear that kind of rustling noise? We can hear the rustling noise.
We can't hear a whole lot on your end except for you. It's kind of like everything else is almost like muted. It might be the wind doing that.
Yeah, and there's cars driving around too. But anyway, there's like a rustling noise, and it's their wings that are up against the leaves. It's making a really cool sound.
Back to your book, I really appreciate the message that, nature isn't far away, it's just in your backyard, or really not far at all. And I think that's particularly powerful right now during the pandemic, because even though being out in nature a safe distance from people is great, it's not necessarily totally accessible because some parks are shutting down, some are at very limited capacity. So sometimes you have to be creative with nature viewing. And I know that there are a lot more people noticing the birds in their backyard now, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I mean, I've really enjoyed that feedback that people are, that they're out and they're looking at what's in their yard. They're noticing what plants they're eating, what insects they're eating, the whole system, which is important. And right now, if you want to do something good for the birds, put some clean water out, get a bird bath, and get some water out for sure, because they definitely need it as we kind of go into this little drought that we're hitting right now. And if you want to do something good for the birds, you can also donate to Travis Audubon. They're one of my favorite conservation organizations, and certainly one of the oldest here in Central Texas. And they have done amazing things to raise awareness for, avian events like this, help set aside lands for the golden cheek warbler and other birds that nest in Central Texas, and just have done a spectacular job of educating thousands and thousands of people on the avian life that we share, right here in Travis County. So, and I'm sure that you can go on several different pages on the Travis Audubon website to figure out how to make a contribution to them. And for me, it's all about supporting organizations that help take care of the wild places and wild things of our great state.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your support. And thank you so much for being outside in the heat and doing this for us and letting us other folks just hang out and watch from the comfort of our homes and our AC. We really appreciate you doing this with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'll turn this on really quick. It's been a pleasure, and I won't lie to you. The soles of my feet are pretty hot right now. So, like I said, you can come out, bring some water, and be ready to be kind of warm. But it doesn't beat this. I mean, this is just so cool. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm just going to do one last pass. You can see, I mean, this just beats the pants off of the bats. I just can't even describe it. I'm going to turn it back around here. I also love it that there's a group of Travis Audubon members that are behind me just laughing their faces off, having a great time here tonight. So if you're looking for like-minded people, they're here. Well, I'm going to sign off, and we'll let these birds have a wonderful night, sleep in this beautiful Texas July evening.
Thanks, Jennifer. You have a great evening and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
You want me to keep filming them, or do you want me to log off?
Totally up to you. I'm just going to say a few words. You're welcome to stay or leave.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who is still here. We're running a little late, but I was hoping that we would, because I know that it's about this time that the birds are at their peak numbers and are being very active up in the sky. And if you are interested in learning more about Jennifer Bristol's book, Parking Lot Birding, or purchasing the book, I left a few links in the comments section on places where you can purchase the book. And if you are interested in going to see the Roost yourself, I also left a link to the Travis Audubon website that goes specifically to the Purple Martin page that gives you more information on where the Roost is located. So thank you all once again, and we're going to sign off. So everybody have a good evening.